G'day and welcome to the Scrapbooking Inspiration Podcast. I'm your host Melissa Shannon and today we're going to be talking about backing up. Now stop, don't turn off now. What you need to do is actually listen to this and have a little think about it. I hope that many of you already have backup solutions for your computers, but if you're a scrapbooker, and especially a digital scrapbooker, you don't want to have all your digital files disappear. So when I was planning out this series, I had intended to talk about CrashPlan that I've used for many years and really love. However, CrashPlan has recently, in August 2017, discontinued their home backup service. So, what is remaining? Well, there are a few other services you can think about, but before we go into them, let's step back a few steps. Why do you want an online cloud backup system? Now, the general consensus is that you need your files, your photographs, your documents, all that kind of stuff backed up in at least 2 places. So that means you've got original files on your hard drive. Then you might have a local backup, which could be an external hard drive on your computer. And then you also have generally a cloud service like Carbonite, CrashPlan, Backblaze, or similar. Now, I started my online backups life with Carbonite. Carbonite used to have an unlimited amount of megabytes for their low monthly fee. However, that changed, and to be honest, if I was going to back up my 3 terabytes of data, I would be paying hundreds of dollars a month with Carbonite. So that's not really an option for me anymore. So what does an online backup service actually do? Well, they take your files from your computer, upload them encrypted over the internet and store them in their own secure services, and they themselves have backups. So if anything goes wrong at your end, all you need to do is put in a customer service request or simply go into their online service and re-download the files that you need. If you have something catastrophic, say for example you're one of the people who've suffered all these losses through the recent hurricane in the US, you would be able to request a hard drive from your online service and they will put all your files on there and send it out to you. Usually that's an additional fee. Now the benefit of having an online backup service is that it's fully automated. So as a digital scrapbooker, you probably have more and larger files than most people. But everyone these days is taking lots of photos and videos on their smartphones. So I think that having a full backup solution is just a better investment. Your online backup solutions cost far less than something like Dropbox, where you're paying $10 a month. So you could even invest in a small business backup plan like I am, and you'll pay less than what you're paying if you're paying for Dropbox. Now, if you're using Dropbox as a backup service or iCloud and paying for that, you're probably paying more to just back up your photos than you would be if you just backed up your whole computer. And the benefit of having a full backup is that all your files are protected. And that means your programs and your documents, there's a lot of important things that we have that aren't photos. And I know as scrapbookers, we kind of put photos up on a pedestal, but you probably have other tax records and information that you really do want to keep. So, as you can see, I'm a big fan of online backups. And I really enjoyed using the CrashPlan service because that has had the facility to back up my computer, and it also made it easy to access those files using a mobile app. Now, Since it's all changed pretty recently, I've not had too much of a chance to look into online backup services for you. But I have got a few things that you need to check when you're doing your own research. First off, what does it cover? How many files and how many gigabytes are included in your standard plans? To work out how much storage you'll need, head to your computer on Windows, My Computer, and then look at the hard drives. Double click on this PC and then look at the hard drives. You can see the amount used by right-clicking on the hard drive and selecting Properties. You'll see Used and Available. Used is the amount of files you would need to back up. So, have a look at that. In my case, it's 3 terabytes. In your case, it might be less. It's probably more like 1 terabyte, I'd guess, for most people, or less. And then also have a look at any external hard drives you've got. Just make a note of the amount of space used on every single device you have got. Then, that's one aspect. Add that all together, and that's how much space you'll need. You can use that to see tiered plans like Carbonite. Now, if you're looking at a service that has unlimited data, or any service at all, the second thing you need to consider is how many devices they can manage. So, in the case of CrashPlan, they do not restrict the number of hard drives you can use in their backup service, but they do just restrict the number of computers you can have selected. Other systems restrict you to only your internal hard drive and don't back up your external hard drive. So if you're using a laptop and you have, say, 2 external hard drives, one for your photos and one for everything else, you will need to make sure that you can have 2 external hard drives and your main internal hard drive backed up on the system you're going to choose. Now, you also need to check how often the drives need to be connected. If you're going on a holiday for a month and you're just taking your laptop and you're not connecting to your backup service, what happens to your files? You need to check what their policy is on retaining the files. So, you've got 3 things to check. How many files you can back up, how many devices or hard drives you can connect, and how long they retain the files even if you're not connected and backing up. The 4th thing you need to check is, can you start with a seed drive? If you have several hundred gigabytes of information, it will be much quicker to get your backup up and running if you can just get a hard drive from them, put all your information on there and send it back. Being in Australia, our internet upload speed is very slow. I get about 0.8 upload speed and I can't wait a year for my backups to complete. With Carbonite, when I was using them, I had that service for 3 years and I never completed my initial backup. So when I switched to CrashPlan, I had them send me a hard drive, which they call a seed drive. I loaded everything onto there and I sent it back to their offices in Sydney. Then they got the information off that hard drive, put it into their system, and voila, I was like 99% backed up. And I only had like a week of files I needed to upload over the internet. Now, if you're based in the US or somewhere else that has actual good upload speeds, this might not be such an issue. It might take you several weeks to upload your first backup, but I think it's still worth considering having a seed backup. So, there's our 4 things to consider. How much space do you need? How many devices do you need backed up? How often do you need to be connected in order for the backup to remain current? If you're away for an extended period of time and not doing your backups. And finally, how do you start the backup process? Can you use a seed drive, or do you need to wait weeks for the backups to happen? Now, I would also have you have a look and consider what services you've already got. Are you already paying for Google Drive space, Dropbox, OneDrive, iCloud, any of those services? Write them all down. And next to those, write down what it's actually doing for you. If you've subscribed to a service like Forever, you might have all your photos backed up, but you still may need something else for your documents. If you're using iCloud for all your Apple devices, but your husband has an Android phone, is he covered? Has he got all of his information and photos going up to the cloud? It's a good time to just take a moment to assess what devices you have in your house and how they're being backed up, and how you would restore them in the case of an emergency. So, because this is probably a little too much, I've prepared I've got a PDF for you that you can fill out and assess what services you're currently using and for what, and how a cloud backup service might replace or enhance the backups and online services you're already using. In this day and age, we can get into the habit of just paying our $10 a month to a few different places and think that something like an online backup service is too expensive. But you might actually find that by consolidating a few things, you'll have all your documents and photos safe, and you'll have a simpler method to get your photos back or your files back in the case of an emergency. So, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Scrapbooking Inspiration Podcast, and I hope that it's lifted a bit of a burden off your back to hear explained exactly what cloud backup is and the things you need to look for in selecting your own. Have a look at the printable at scrapbookingpodcast.com and fill it out. And if you have any questions, email me, help@digiscraphq.com. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Scrapbooking Inspiration Podcast. You'll find all the links to the products that I've mentioned in today's podcast at scrapbookingpodcast.com. Please note, I do use affiliate links, and when you use those links, you help support Digital Scrapbooking HQ and this podcast. So thanks for clicking, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Scrapbooking Inspiration Podcast today. If you'd like to learn more, head to scrapbookingpodcast.com, where you can find the show notes for this episode and the links to everything we've talked about.